continue the Shi'ur in Gemara. Gemara says there's a pasuk in Tehillim which says, Yirat Hashem Tehorah Omedet La'ad. Fear of Hashem is pure, lasting forever. Eidut Hashem Ne'emanah. The testimony of Hashem is trustworthy. The Gemara explains that pasuk. First half of the pasuk, fear of Hashem is pure, which, naturally, fear of Hashem is pure. Which fear? And speaking of fear of Hashem, of course, it means respect for the mitzvot of Hashem. And secondly, this pasuk, in total, is speaking about the Torah, which means that we say fear of Hashem, we mean the Torah. When we say the testimony of Hashem, again, we mean the Torah. What is meant by pure? The Gemara says that the purity in Torah means one who studies Torah in purity, meaning a person who gets married when he is young, and then he studies Torah. Because if one studies Torah while he is unmarried, he cannot really concentrate with a pure mind on Torah. He has his mind on temptation, on sin, which draws away his concentration. So if a person wants to spend his life in Torah, get married when young, and then his mind will, the rest of his life, remain pure in the study of Torah, or have nothing to distract him. Now we say again that the testimony of the Torah is trustworthy. The Gemara says this means that the Torah can be trusted to testify about those who study Torah. Studying Torah itself is a very big mitzvah, but it is a tremendous mitzvah only when the person studies Torah in order to fulfill the teachings of Torah, the mitzvot of the Torah. So when a person comes to the heavenly court, who is there to testify for or against that person? The Torah itself. The Torah states this person studied Torah and he fulfilled the mitzvot of the Torah. Torah itself testifies to it, or chas v'shalom, to the contrary. But the testimony is, just as we find that the tablets throughout the Torah are called luchot ha'edut. So now we find that the tablets of the Holy Ark, tablets meaning the original Torah, are called luchot, tablets ha'edut, that testify. This means that the Torah itself needs no other witness to testify about a Jew's fulfilling this word of the Torah. The Torah itself will testify to it. Secondly, even in this world too, in order to prove that a person is great, there are many ways that people can be fooled. But the Torah is the best testimony. The person who is very learned in Torah, his knowledge of Torah will speak out for him on his behalf that he is great, that he is wise. So even during a person's lifetime, in this world, the Torah is the best witness, best one to testify about a person's characteristics, person's wisdom, because the Torah is the Eidut Hashem, a heavenly testimony. The Gemara says that there are two kinds of Kohanim. Regular Kohen is called Kohen Hedyot. That's the simple Kohen. We have one Kohen who is called the Kohen Gadol, the high Kohen, the chief Kohen. The first one was Aharon Kohen. From that time on, each generation, successively, there was one Kohen Gadol who had the highest position among Kohanim. He was the only one that had the privilege to enter into the Kodesh Kodeshim, the Holy of Holies. What is basically the difference between a Kohen Gadol and a regular Kohen? The clothing that they wear, or let's say in a sense the uniform they wear in the service of the Beit HaMikdash. The clothing, the garments of a Kohen Hedyot, the regular Kohen, consists of just 4 garments and no more. The Kohen Gadol wears 8 garments. In addition to the garments of a Kohen Hedyot, he also has 4 additional garments, and one of the most important is the Urim V'Tumim. It's the Choshen Mishpat, a chest plate, which are set diamonds. These diamonds, two of them, 2 blocks, 2 squares, and there they have the letters of the 12 tribes of Israel. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, and so on. These 12, the names of the 12 Shvatim, set in diamonds, and these Urim V'Tumim, it means to give light and to complete a statement. This had heavenly powers where if they wanted to make contact with heaven, to find out the answer to an important problem, they could find it out through the Urim V'Tumim. The question could be asked directly of heaven, and the letters on this chest plate, Urim V'Tumim, would light up to give them the answer. Now, the Yoma says, how is this done? First, the one to ask this question must be an important person. It could be only the king of the Jews, or the head of the Sanhedrin, or in general a leader of the Jews. No ordinary person has the right to ask questions. And the way it is done is that the person, the king, for example, comes before the Kohen Gadol. He faces the Kohen Gadol, and he asks the question, shall I go to battle against this enemy? The Kohen Gadol, meanwhile, faces either the person asking the question, or he faces the Heichal. This is a machloket between Rashi HaKadosh and the Rambam. The Rambam, Rashi HaKadosh, says that the Kohen Gadol looked at the chest plate, and the king, or the person asking the question, would face the Kohen, would be face to face. Because the words of the Gemara is that the one asking the question must face the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol must face the Shekhinah. What is meant by the Shekhinah? Rashi HaKadosh says it means the Urim V'Tumim, this chest plate. The Rambam says that the Shekhinah means the Heichal. So according to the Rambam, the Kohen Gadol stands facing the Heichal. In back of him, looking at his back, but not being able to see the Kohen Gadol or the Urim V'Tumim, is the king who is asking the question, king or the leader. This is the opinion of the Rambam. Now, the way it is done, we'll use for example, king. The king asks the question to the Kohen Gadol, shall I go into battle against the enemy? And the Kohen Gadol looks at the Urim V'Tumim, and the letters on the Urim V'Tumim then light up. Now you have the letters, the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. This contains every letter of the alphabet. It's supposed to contain all the letters of the alphabet. So if the answer, for example, is go up to battle, the answer in Hebrew is Aleh. So the letter Ayin would light up, the letter Ayin for the word Shimon, for example. And then afterwards the letter Lamed for the word Levi, and then the letter He, the word Yehuda. But this would be in succession, one after the other. They get the message, Ayin, Lamed, He, Ale, go up to battle. This was a direct answer from heaven. So there was actual contact. This was a miracle, of course. This existed only in the time of the first Bet HaMikdash, not in the time of the second Bet HaMikdash. It was a means of contacting heaven directly to find out a definite answer to any vital question. Haggadah says that we find, for example, in the time of the Pilegish Begiv'ah in the Navi, long before the building of the first Bet HaMikdash, the time of the judges, when the civil war broke out between the 11 tribes and the tribe of Binyamin, because of the fact that the tribe of Binyamin had killed the wife of a certain tradition, the person passing through, and the Jews felt they must avenge this murder. They decided to go into battle against Binyamin. But they said, even though we outnumber them by more than 10 to 1, perhaps 20 to 1, still, and we are justified, they are murderers, and we are going to avenge a murder. They refused to hand over the murderers to us. This means war. Despite the fact that we are justified and we outnumber them, and there's no question of our winning a victory, let us not go till we first ask a question from heaven. They asked the question, shall we go into battle against our brother Binyamin? The answer came back, go. They went. First day's battle, many thousands of Jews died, none from the tribe of Binyamin. They came back crying, praying, what happened? What did we do wrong? We are right, we're justified. We asked the question, the answer came back, go, and we lost the war today. They asked the question again, shall we continue to go into battle? The answer came back, go. They went the second day again, thousands were killed. They couldn't understand this. Finally, they asked Pinchas, the grandson of Aharon, and they said, ask the question for us. He said, shall we go into battle? And shall we win? The answer came back, go. This time you'll win. You ask the question like a fool, you get the kind of answer you deserve. Ask the question properly, and you get the proper answer. So the wording of the question is very important. Now, back to a very important point. In order to get an answer, every answer that's necessary, you must have every letter of the alphabet. Here it says, what if you need an answer that contains the letter tzadik, for example? There's not one of the 12 tribes who has the letter tzadik in it. So here it says, therefore we must say that in addition to the 12 tribes of Israel, there were also written the words Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaacov on this chest plate. So Yoma asks, what about the letter Tet? You either were in letter Tet in it, you haven't got the letter Tet either in the 12 tribes of Israel, or in the words of Yitzchak and Yaakov. Yoma answers, you had the names of the 3 fathers of the Jews, you had the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, you also had at the end Shiftei Yisrael, or Shiftei Yeshua. Shiftei means tribes. The word Shiftei, you had the letter Tet. You had 12 tribes of Israel consist of 50 letters. Let's go into depth now. There are 49 letters in them. There's a posek in Tehillim which says, Eidut be'Yosef Samo. Eidut be'Yosef Samo. Which means, a story that the Gemara tells us, that Yosef HaTzadik knew all 8 languages. He knew many languages, but he could not speak the language of Paro. So that night, Malach came from heaven and taught him the additional languages he didn't know. He gave him the letter of Hashem's name, the letter He. Instead of Yosef, Yud Vav, the He was placed between the Yud and the Vav, so he had the first 3 letters of Hashem's name, Yud Ke Vav Yosef. In other words, he had the same power. You should have Hashem's name like Yehudah. His name is now Yosef. What did this accomplish? Aside from the fact it gave him this additional chachma, additional knowledge. Well, we know that we say the Kriyat Shema. Rabbi Arizal tells us, Arizal says, we say the Kriyat Shema. The first sentence is Shema Yisrael, and the second is Baruch Shem. We always say Yichud Kudsha B'richu U'Shechimtei, Hashem and the Spirit of Hashem, Kaviyachol, to bring the Spirit of Hashem to combine with Hashem. The Shema Yisrael stands for Hashem, and that's the king. Baruch Shem is the queen. 25 letters in the Shema Yisrael, and 24 letters in Baruch Shem Kavod. This is a total of 49. We know that there are 50 degrees of wisdom. 49 degrees is like counting the 49 days of the Omer. 50th day is Kaviyachol Hashem himself, Shavuot, where Hashem says, Shuvu Elai, Ve'ashuva Alechem. Return to me as high as you can go, 49 degrees. The 50th, the Pasuk says, Vayinid Hashem al Har Sinai. On Shavuot, Hashem came down on Mount Sinai. Because the Jews couldn't go any higher than 49. The 50th is Hashem himself, so he descended to greet them. That's the 50th degree. In other words, completion, perfection is the 50th degree. So we have the Shema Yisrael. That means that we are driving out all the powers of Tum'ah. We are bringing in the powers of Kedusha. These are the 12 tribes of Israel called Shiftei Kat, tribes of Hashem. They complete the whole Kedusha, the entire holiness possible. On these 12 tribes, total 49 letters. They correspond to the Shema Yisrael and Baruch Shem. This is now. The Atir Lavo in the future, when Mashiach comes, then we will have completion and perfection. We'll have the 50 degrees, because then the Shekhinah will come out of Galut, return back, be united again with the Kedusha, Kaviyachol Hashem. We'll have the 50 complete. 50 complete means that we will then have to have 50 letters. Well, the Sifrei Kabbalah say that at that time we will say, Baruch Hashem Kevod Malchuto Elam Va'ed. We'll have an additional letter added on, Behe, Baruch Hashem, you'll have 50 letters. To correspond to that, we must have also 50 letters in the 12 tribes of Israel. So that then the name of Yosef will be taken in full, the name of Yehosef, as the Pasuk in Tehillim says. When we have Yosef's name spelled with the letter K, we then have 50 letters complete. So now we know that we have 50 letters so far on the Urim V'Tumim, on this chest plate. But this chest plate is something that is so high, it has to reach up to heaven to make contact. Let's delve into what is meant by heaven. Let's, for once, describe the geography of heaven. In creation we have what is known as 4 worlds. Everything in Kedusha is divided into 4 because everything in Kedusha is derived from the name of Hashem. The name of Hashem has 4 letters, Yud, K, Vav, K. And everything must correspond to the root, the origin, which is the name of Hashem. So corresponding to these 4 letters, we have in creation 4 basic worlds, 4 levels. The lowest level is this earthly world. Earthly means the earth, the moon, the sun, the planets, the solar system, everything that is material. All the stars, the sky that we see, up to the spiritual heaven is all called this earthly world. In Hebrew known as Olam HaAsiyah. Asiyah means matter, actuality, doing. This is the lowest world. This is the lowest one of the 4. The next one, above that, is Olam HaYetzirah. Yetzirah means the higher form of creation. Olam HaYetzirah is the world known also as Olam HaMalachim, the world where angels are found. This already is a spiritual world. This is the world of the angels. This is only the second one. Above that you have Olam HaBri'ah, the much finer, much more delicate division of creation. That's called the Olam HaKisei. Kaviyachol, like the throne of the Spirit of Hashem. That's 3rd highest. 4th, the highest, which means the 4th, or actually the 1st, the top, is Olam HaAtzilut. That's so purely spiritual that it is above the conception of human or angel. It is so high that it is first step lower than Hashem himself. with Ein Sof, Hashem the Infinite. These four worlds are the basis too for everything that exists. In all of creation we find that they're divided into four. You have the four types of creation. You have the lowest form of creation is domim, inorganic matter, stones, earth. You have tzomeach, vegetation. That's a higher form of creation because that is alive. It lives. But it's immobile. It doesn't move around. Third, next to the highest is a chai. That's animal, bird, fish life. Highest is medaber. That's the power of speech. That's the human. Then you have, in the human himself, you have four degrees in height. You have the roof, the body, that corresponds to the lowest world, Olam Ha'asiyah. You have the nefesh, the lowest form of the soul, which corresponds to the second world. You have the ruach, higher degree of spirit, and you have the neshama, that corresponds to the upper world. So all this is always in four, and always we return to the fact that everything derives its origin from the name of Hashem. Now the name of Hashem too takes on four forms. These are called an abbreviation Av, Sag, Ma, Ban. The abbreviation stands for numerical value. Av is 72, Sag is 63, Ma is 45, and Ban is 52. This means that when you take the name of Hashem, Yud K, Vav K, and you spell it out, you have different formations, four different formations. Yud spelled out as Yud, Vav, Dalet. That's always the same. So Yud is 10, Vav 6, Dalet is 4. So the gematria, the numerical value of Yud is always 20. 10, 6, and 4 is 20. The letter K, the He, can be spelled either He Aleph written out, the Aleph is silent, or a He, two He's, the second He is silent, or a He and a Yud, when a Yud is silent. Three ways of spelling the letter He. The difference numerically is He Aleph is 6, He is 10, and He Yud is 15. The letter Vav, spelled out, Vav begins with the letter Vav and ends with the letter Vav. In the middle you could have Vav Aleph Vav, which would be Vav is 6. The Vav at the beginning, Vav at the end is 12, and the Aleph is 1 in the middle, makes it 13. Or you can have it as Vav Yud Vav. That would make it then, Vav Yud Vav is 22. It's the highest form of the letter Vav. And then the last Hey at the end, also, again you have three choices. Hey Aleph, Hey Hey, and Hey Yud. The total of the four letters depends upon how you spell these letters. So the lowest total you have is if everything has the letter Aleph. The Hey would have an Aleph at the end. Aleph is only one. And the Vav would have an Aleph in the middle. You have the letter, this is called Hashem's name, Yud K, Vav K, with Alephs. Total is 45. Yud is 20. Hey Aleph is 6. That's 26. The Vav is 13, is 39. The last Hey Aleph is 6 is 45. That's called Shem Ma. Mem Hey, 45, the gematria Adam. Adam is male, which means this Shem Ma stands for the Kaviyachol Hashem, the king, and then Shem Ben, with the letter Hey. Hey is the female letter that stands for the queen. This total is 52. Figure it out, you'll see itself. It stands for the Shekhinah. So since the Shekhinah, the queen, is below the king, therefore the name Ben, the Shem Ben, corresponds to the lowest world, Olam Ha'asiyah. The 45, the Shem Ben, stands for the world above that. Then you have Shem Sag, 63. That's if you have using the letter Hey with the Yud both times, and the Vav without the Yud is 63. And the highest is Av, Ayam Bet 72. That's called the name of Hashem with Yuds throughout. It's called Shem Havaya B'Yud. The name of Hashem with Yuds throughout is the highest form. This is the Olam Ha'atzilut, the highest world of all. This is The gematria is 72. And this shows that the higher you go, the more you find the quality of kindness. Because 72, the gematria, the word chesed. Chesed, kindness, is 72. So that we know throughout the Zohar Kadosh, the writings of the Arizal, when speaking of the name of Hashem, the highest name of Hashem known to us is the Shem Ayin Bet, 72. This corresponds to the highest world. Now here, in order to make contact directly, human being, to Hashem, you have to have something that should symbolize this Shem Ayin Bet, 72. So you have to have 72 letters in this chest plate. We have to have the 50 letters of the tribes, meaning the 50th letter of Yosef's name. And then you have Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov. That's a total of 13 more letters. That's 63. And then Shiftei Yeshurun is 9 letters there, tribes of Israel. That's a total of 72. This is what gave the Urim V'Tumim such a great power. They could make contact with heaven, with Hashem, to be able to receive replies to the most vital questions possible when no human can decide them. He has had to come directly from Hashem himself. This was the Korach of the Urim V'Tumim, which existed only during the time of the first Beit HaMikdash. Now, one more strange item. Very strange item, and yet how pointedly important this is. Let us say that the question arose about a law. They were stumped. A certain item came up. Is this item kasher or taref? Debate among the great rabbis and the Sanhedrin. A doubt. Let's resolve this question by asking this of the Urim V'Tumim. If they would ask this question, kasher, taref, mutar, asur, forbidden or permissible, the answer would come back blank. No answer given from heaven. Why? Because this is a law of Torah. Once the Torah was given to earth, Kaviyachol, who controls Torah now? The rabbis alone. Heaven has released all power over Torah. As we find, for example, you recall the debate between Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol and the Chachamim. They debated the question of a certain oven, whether it's tahor or tameh. And Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol said to the Chachamim, I'm right because I'll prove it to you. Let a voice come from heaven and decide this. The voice came out of heaven and said to them, Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol is right. His law is the right one. And Yeshua stood up and said, we disregard the voice from heaven. Because the Torah was given to the Jews. It is now in the hands of the earthly court, the Sanhedrin. The only ones to decide pertinent questions of law now are the rabbis of the Sanhedrin. The rabbis of every generation, that means. They are the law today. So that even the Urim V'Tumim would refuse to answer the question, showing sort of that there's no more power from heaven. If you want the answer to this question, go to your rabbis, they will give you this answer. A question that cannot be answered is a matter of law, advice. Should we take this important step or not? Of course, that no one but heaven knows. This answer would come from heaven. Never. The Gemara says there's a pasuk in the Torah, the Chumash. When Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to the Jews, he chided them about the fact that they had seen so many miracles and how many times they revolted. But he stated in Torah, Hashem gave you the man in the desert. The man was the heavenly food that came down from heaven each day. He fed you this food. The man anotcha vay'ancha vayarivecha. He tortured you and he made you hungry. The question is, this man was heavenly food that contained so many heavenly powers. A person could feel and taste of anything he wished in that man. Why does the Torah say and Hashem kept you hungry with this food and He tortured you? Yemena gives two answers for it. First place, we cannot compare one who has bread in his pocket or in his house to one who doesn't have it. There's a difference. One who has bread feels secure. He's not hungry. He doesn't feel the pangs of hunger. He's not frantic when he feels suddenly there's no source of supply of food, because he has this reserved amount of food. One who doesn't have it worries about it. In the case of the man, they did not have any reserve at all. They had to wait each day for that man to come down. There was a feeling of hunger constantly, a feeling of worry. This was a type of torture. This was one point. Secondly, the Gemara says, what made them hungry? Despite the fact they had this food, they could not be filled or satiated. Because there's a big difference between a person who eats food and sees what he eats to one who eats food and cannot see it. A person sits down to a plate where he has meat, vegetables, bread, and dessert. He enjoys this food. He sees the different types of food he's eating. Cake, Danish, chocolate. This is food that whets a person's appetite and makes him enjoy the different types of delicacies. But a person who cannot see what he's eating, though he can taste it, he cannot really enjoy it. He can't become filled with it. Now, the man was blind food. They saw a cookie, and that's all they saw. The person that had the power through this cookie to be able to eat it and wish for the taste of meat, he would have the taste of meat. Taste of fruit, taste of vegetables. This was all contained in this man, this heavenly food. But he did not see what he was eating. And because he did not see what he was eating, though he ate what was actually meat, or what was actually fruit, he could not enjoy it at all. Without seeing the food, there cannot be an enjoyment or a filling. And therefore, the Gemara says, this proves to us that a blind person eats and is never really filled. He cannot really feel satiated because he does not enjoy the food he eats. He knows what he's eating. He possesses the sense of smell, the sense of taste, but he cannot see the food, and therefore there's no fulfillment in this food. But the same token too, the Gemara says, if a person wants to eat a meal, a good meal, let him eat that meal by day and not by night. He can enjoy it. This doesn't mean necessarily time of day and night. It means let him eat it when it is light and not where it is dark, in order to really fill himself with enjoyment of the food. He really now explains another pasuk which tells us that it's the words of King Solomon, the wise. If a person's heart is filled with worry about a certain item, what should he do to rid himself of this worry? No matter what the item is, whether it's business, health, family matters, if he has a worry, how does a person get rid of it? The Gemara says in Machlokah two ways. One solution is not to think about it, to completely dismiss it from his mind. Force it out of your mind, because as Rabbi Arizal says that a person's mind is capable of thinking only one thing at a time. You can stop any bad thought automatically by thinking of anything else. That's good. No mind can contain two thoughts simultaneously. So the way to get rid of a worry is push it out of your mind. Don't think about it, and that way it will resolve itself. Or at least you will not lose by it. Enough that the person has that problem not to have to torture himself by thinking about it. Second rabbi says the second solution is to speak about it to others. Tell your problem to others. This way you gain twice. One, you get it off your chest, you feel a little better. Secondly, you stand the chance, the opportunity of receiving advice that may solve your problem. So never keep it in yourself. person can choke with a worry, with a problem. Let it out, speak of it to others. You'll feel better, and you may resolve the problem through their advice. Again, machlokes between these two same rabbis in the pasuk, which says, "Nachash afar lachmo." The bread, the food of a nachash, of a serpent, of a snake, is earth, dirt. One rabbi says this means that even if a snake would eat the best food in the world, the best meat in the world, he would still taste only the taste of earth. He cannot detect any other kind of taste. He has no choice of food whatsoever. He has one single taste, and that is a taste of earth. As the curse that Hashem gave to Nachash, you shall eat earth all your life. Second rabbi says this means that even if he eats other foods, and he does feel a taste, he does not feel satisfaction until he eats earth too. This means that's why it's called his bread, not his food. His bread is earth. Just as a person cannot be filled by eating any kind of food, no matter how good it is, he must have bread in order to fill himself. The bread of a serpent is earth. Now the Gemara says, notice how different the quality of heaven is compared to the quality of human beings. If a person is angry at his friend, then he does everything possible to hurt his friend, any way, any manner possible, to hurt him to the utmost. But when Hashem is angered, and he had to issue curses, and still these curses were modified. They were softened. For example, Hashem cursed the serpent. What was the curse? You shall eat earth all the days of your life. This is a curse. At the same time, there's a blessing to it. Because this meant you'll never have any problems in finding food. You wouldn't have to work for your food. You wouldn't have to search as other animals do. It's a curse, but there's a blessing in it too. You'll never have a shortage of food. You'll go up on top of the roof, you'll find dirt. Go down on the ground, you'll find dirt. No matter where you go, you'll find your food available readily. Hashem cursed Canaan, the abdids, slaves. He told them you'll be slaves. It's a curse. But at the same time, a slave has no worry about a livelihood, earning a livelihood. Does not look for a job. He lives, and he has a master continually, where he receives food, drink from his master. Hashem cursed the ground, the earth. When he gave these curses, there were 39 curses total, 10 to Adam, 10 to Chava, 10 to the Nachash, and 9 to the ground. He cursed the ground, but still, with this curse, the ground is still king, because everyone must resort to the ground for their food. Every living being has to receive its food, nourishment from that which grows in the ground. And this shows how when Hashem is angered and curses, it is still with kindness attached to it. The difference between heaven and earth. The Yoma says that, again, when Moshe Rabbeinu spoke about the men, there was mentioned certain vegetables, certain types of food. And the Yoma says, what is meant by these, why are these types of food brought out? One is cucumbers, the other is melons, watermelons, cantaloupe, onions, and garlic. What are these special for? Because these singular items could never be tasted in the men. The men had heavenly powers. A person could taste anything he wished when eating men, but not these items. And the reason for it was because these items are dangerous to a pregnant woman. She is not supposed to eat these items. Cucumbers, melons, onions, and garlic. In order to avoid an error being made by these pregnant women, Hashem withdrew the power of being able to taste these items in a food. Which shows how considerate, how careful Hashem was in guarding his people in the desert. He fed them this food from heaven, but saw to that it should cause no harm at all. The man was heavily miraculous. It was food that was so pure that the pure food means food that does not go to waste. Any bad food has a lot of roughage, a lot of waste to it. The man was a food where there was no waste whatsoever. It's called nivla be'evarim. It was converted into the bloodstream and remained there. Not one iota of it was waste. So pure was this food. Still, something that might cause the slightest bit of harm was avoided in this case too. This shows how Hashem guards his flock, and this should be our hope, our tefillah. We should be zocher again to return to Eretz Yisrael and to have Hashem guard us there as his people, his chosen people. B'biat HaMashiach, b'yam Beit HaMikdash, v'hila b'yameinu, amen, v'yamein. We continue the Shiur in Gemara. Continuing about the topic of the man, the heavenly food that came from heaven. The Gemara says that just as the prophet, the Navi, was able to reveal to the Jews that which was completely hidden, so did the man too tell and reveal to the Jews that which was completely hidden, something which nobody could tell. For example, the Gemara says two men came before Moshe Rabbeinu for a trial. One said to the second one, "You stole my slave." The second one replied, "I did not steal him. You sold him to me. He's legally mine." The question is, who's telling the truth? It's impossible to detect from their words which one is telling the truth. Moshe Rabbeinu very cleverly said to them, "I will give you the decision tomorrow morning. But tomorrow morning, when you go out and collect the man, bring the sacks of men to me." Now, there was an exact measure that came down from heaven for each person. Let's put it in the exact form that we call it today. Exactly 43 1/5 eggs would make up the amount of man that came for each person. It's called omer, or known also as challah. You take challah, take off a portion that's burned when a person bakes. Woman bakes bread or cake. If that contains the equivalent of 43 1/5 eggs, just the word challah, the gematria 43, the hay at the end is 5 or 5, 43 1/5 eggs. That requires challah, and this is considered enough food for a person for a day. So for each person, there fell from heaven exactly that amount. When they went out to collect the omer, to collect the man, he collected without counting. He just put the man into a sack. When he came home, he would find that he had exactly the number of omers per person in the family. There were 10 people in the family. He had collected 10 omers. If there were 2, he had 2. Never more or less. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu said to them, "Tomorrow morning, return with your sacks, and come to me, and I will give you the decision as to who is the rightful owner of this slave." The morning when they came back, he took both sacks, he counted the number of omers in each sack, and he asked each person, "How many members do you have in your family?" They told him, and then in one of those 2 sacks he would find an additional omer to cover that slave. In heaven it was known who the slave belonged to. So that amount came down additionally for that person. This way Moshe Rabbeinu would tell them who is the rightful owner of the slave. And here we see how the man revealed secrets that were hidden from people. Second case was two. If a woman, for example, was divorced from her first husband, and she did not realize that she was pregnant at the time, then later on, when she married the second husband, with the second husband she gave birth to a child after 7 months of pregnancy. 7 months, she did not know now whose child, who was the father of that child. Was this child born the 7th month of the second marriage, or was the child born after 9 months of pregnancy, being the child of the first husband? Very important question. If this is a child of the first husband, that child cannot marry the other children of that first husband, his brothers and sisters. If this is a child of the second husband, then, of course, the child still cannot marry the brother or sister from the first husband that had been born from this same mother. But he could marry the brother or sister from the first husband if he had had a wife before this one. Follow that? So it was important to detect now, determine whether this child was born from the first husband or the second. And how was this done? Again, through the man. The man would come down and it would prove which was the true father by having the Omed appear in the home of the first husband, the divorced one, or in the home of the new husband. A number of other cases too where this revealed, told that which was completely hidden. In addition, the Gemara says that together with the man, the miracle of the man was that together with the man that descended from heaven spices, perfumes for the women. In addition to diamonds fell from heaven together with the man. And this, of course, solves a problem, solves a riddle. How did the Jews have diamonds to contribute to the Mishkan, to the holy temple in the desert? Diamonds for the Kohen Gadol's chest plate. The answer was they had these diamonds that came down from heaven together with the man. And when the man fell, the pasuk says in one spot, the man fell on the camp of the Jews. Another sentence says the people would go out and collect it. Third sentence says people would have to scatter far and wide to collect it. You have three contradictory statements. The answer is that for tzadikim, the man fell right at their doorstep. Ordinary people had to go outside of the camp. And the sha'im had to go far away from the camp, scatter far and wide to be able to collect this man. This was proof that the man was not the same for everyone. However, the Torah says that the Jews were justified in asking for man. It's bread. They must have bread that sustains a person's life. If they had no other bread, they were justified in requesting it. When the man came down, when did the man descend from heaven? Early in the morning. The Jews walked out, they found the man at the very beginning of the day. When they asked for meat, however, this was an arrogance on their part. After all, they had cattle. They could have used the cattle for meat. They asked for meat, and Hashem became angry, and he said, I'll give you meat. And the meat came down too. The Slav special birds that flew over the camp. From this they had meat. But this meat that they asked unjustifiably, the meat came to them towards evening, which was bad. Because meat takes time to prepare. So that there was no time left for them in the evening, and it meant they had to either stay up very late or not eat it at the right time. The Gemara says that we learn an important lesson from here, something which is not practiced too often. The Gemara says a person that has a large meal, a large meal means a meat meal, not a dairy meal, what is the right time to eat it? Lunchtime or supper time? What is the proper time for a meat meal? The Yemena says the proper time is by day and not at night. A heavy meat meal, the person eats one meat meal a day. It should be for lunch and not in the evening. Evening should be a lighter meal. Proof from the fact that the Torah considers this bad for the Jews that the meat came down at night. The Yemena says the students of Rabbi Shimon bar Arizal asked Rabbi Shimon bar Arizal this question: why did Hashem make the man come down daily, every morning? Why didn't He provide them with this miracle once, every year? Once a year, the man should come down from heaven, enough to last them for an entire year. Rabbi Arizal told them there are three answers for it. The first answer is the most important. He said, I'll give you an example. A king had a son, and he provided his son with the necessary means of a livelihood, especially with food, and he set aside an allotment for his son once a year to take his nourishment, his food that was necessary. The son did not visit his father. Once a year he came around to visit him, to be nice to him, to get this allotment. The king decided then, let my son receive his allotment daily, just enough for each day. This way the son was forced to come to the father, the king, each day, to be nice to him, to ask him, to request for his food allotment, and of course this brought his son and father much closer together. So too, if Hashem would give the Jews enough food once a year, they'd have their food, they'd have their needs, necessities, they wouldn't have to come before Hashem to ask. Now, if a man had a large family, he had a wife, 4 or 5 children, he'd be worried about what he's going to eat tomorrow. Hashem gave him man just for one day. He's worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. Well, this miracle will be repeated tomorrow. So this father had to go out and to sully to pray to Hashem, put his heart into the prayers. When? Every single day. And this brought the Jews much closer to Hashem. Second answer is, of course, that the man came down, it was warm, it was sun-baked, warm and fresh. So it's much better to have fresh bread, bagels, every morning, rather than buy it once a year and have it turn stale to a degree. Third answer, simply, naturally, is that they had to travel, to keep traveling and have to carry along a large extra load of food, a year's supply, would make traveling so much more difficult. Therefore, a man was sent down just once a year. This was the answer of Rabbi Shimon bar Arizal. Now the Yemeni goes in to tell us, to explain more clearly a chapter in Navi. Chapter in the Navi Yecheskel. Yecheskel was one of the first prophets, time of the first Bet HaMikdash, around the time of the destruction of the first Bet HaMikdash. There's an entire Sefer Yecheskel in the Nach, the book of Nevi'im, and there we find a story Yecheskel Hanavi told. The Gemara tells us this story as quoted from the Navi, with the Gemara's addition at points explain the story more clearly. We won't stop each time to say what the Gemara injects into the story. We'll combine it as one. But if you learn the Navi Yecheskel, you would detect yourselves immediately where the Gemara adds these statements. And then we find that Yecheskel said, one time I was sitting in my home, and suddenly I saw a strange sight, tremendous fire, large proportions. I recognize this fire as the symbol of heaven, like the Shekhinah. From this fire there came forth the form of a hand, which lifted me by my hair, the peyot, raised me, lifted me, and carried me to Yerushalmi, to the spot, to the Bet HaMikdash. This I saw in a vision, not that I was physically carried, but I felt a vision of myself being carried by this heavenly hand and let me down at the north gate to the Beit HaMikdash. There at this north gate, I saw the special idol, famous idol that had brought so much calamity to the Jewish faith, and which had brought so much anger to heaven. And the voice said to me, heavenly voice said, look, see the evils that the Jews are perpetrating. Here is an idol set up just to anger Hashem. But this is not all. Go further. In the north wall, as you enter, there's a door to the yard. In that door, there's a little hole. Dig into that hole and make that hole larger so that you can go through. Yechezkel the prophet said this. I did, and I entered into this yard, and there I saw 70 of the elders of the Jews offering a sacrifice of ketoret. Ketoret is the holiest sacrifice there is. It's a combination of 11 spices. And these 11 spices combined make up the most important korban possible. The power of ketoret is, the Gemara says that when Moshe Rabbeinu went to heaven, he was notified, it was revealed to him that in case there ever be a magifa, a plague, chas v'shalom, the way to stop the plague is to offer a sacrifice of ketoret. So powerful is this korban. The Zohar Kadosh says that ketoret is so powerful because it covers all the 4 worlds. It goes from the Olam HaAsiyah through to the angelic world of Olam HaYetzirah, to Olam HaBriyah, to Olam HaTzilut. The lowest point to the highest point. Here, the voice said, here these 70 elders are taking this most important korban of ketoret, which is supposed to prevent death, and they are using this as a korban to the idols, which means they're going to have the very opposite effect now to this ketoret. And this is not all yet. Go further. The prophet went further. There he saw the women who were worshipping, serving an idol, and their work, evil work was, there was an idol in which they set fire to the inside of the idol, and the idol, of course, was made of metal and couldn't burn, but the fire rose upwards, and the eyes were made of lead, so that when the heat of the fire reached the eyes melted, and the lead melted, and it looked like tears were coming down. These women cried, the idol is crying for sacrifices. The voice said, go further. Yechezkel the prophet went further. He came to the Heichal. And there he saw 25 men bowing. But not to the Heichal, bowing with their backs to the Heichal towards the sun. The sun is just worshipping the sun. Not just worshipping the sun, but showing disdain, arrogance, disrespect to the Heichal by turning their backs, bowing down to the sun with their backs to the Heichal. The voice said, just as they are doing, so am I going to bring punishment to them. They say that chas v'shalom Hashem has left. He's not present, chas v'shalom, he doesn't see this. I'm going to teach them a lesson now, a horrible lesson of punishment. And suddenly, Yechezkel the prophet said, I saw 6 forms appear. 6 angels in human form. These 6 were angels of destruction. Each one had a famous name, destruction. And then I saw with them one angel dressed differently. This was the angel Gabriel. Especially with them. And this malach is a good malach. He is the malach of fire, but he's also a good malach who attempts to save the Jews from the harm. And then a voice came and said to this malach, go out and go through the city and carve the letter Tef on the forehead of all the tzadikim. That when these 6 angels of destruction go out to kill, they will spare those with the letter Taf on their foreheads. Taf stands for Tichya, we shall live. Then the voice said, now you 6 go out and destroy and kill. And these 6 immediately wiped out these 25 men who were bowing. They went further, leaving the Beit HaMikdash. He kept on going and destroying the women and the 70 elders. And the voice said, go, kill, kill, men, women, children, kill, don't stop. The Cheskel, the prophet, said, and then I fell forward on my face and I pleaded with heaven, I pleaded with Hashem, and I said, do you want to destroy your children, wipe out the Jews? And the voice said to the Malach, the good Malach, go to the kirubim, special angels, and there take from these angels of fire. There take coals of fire and throw these coals of fire on the city. This will cause complete destruction. This Malach Gabriel went. He came to the special angel of fire. He reached out and he said to them, give me these coals of fire. Now, hidden in this is the point that this angel who gave it to him was the angel Michael. This Malach is the official angel of the Jews. Though we know that every country, every nation has its angel, the Jews have only Hashem, yet we find in the Chumash that when the people had committed the wrong with the idol, the golden calf, Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Hinei Malachi Yelech Lefanecha. Behold, my angel Malachi, my angel will go before you. He will lead you from now on. And Moshe Rabbeinu prayed to Hashem and said, Hinei Panecha Olchim, we want only you. If not you, we don't want to go. We want only Hashem to lead us, and no angel shall lead us. The Zohar Kadosh says, Malachi, my angel, take those letters and turn them around, and you have the word Michael. Which angel was that? Michael, who was the one that Hashem appointed to take care of the Jews. He is the angel for the Jews at a time when Chas v'Shalom, the Shekhinah leaves the Jews. But naturally, he is the best Malach out. Next to the Shekhinah, he is the best angel selected for the Jews. So this Malach is so great that it came to taking those coals of fire. Note that the Malach Gabriel, the angel of fire, said, give me these coals. The angel gave him these coals. He went out, he threw the coals on the city as he was ordered. He came back and he reported, I have performed as you have commanded me. These were his words. Immediately the voice came from heaven and said, take this Malach Gabriel and give him 60 lashes of fire. Why? Because the voice said, you were commanded to do something. Now, you failed to perform this command. Why? Obviously, because you had pity on the Jews. You were told clearly, take the coals of fire and throw it upon the Jews. You take the coals, they retain their original heat. But if a different Malach takes them and hands them to you, in the interim they cool off. So you play this trick by saying to the Malach, hand me these coals of fire. In that motion of one Malach holding it, handing it to the second, they cooled enough so that they could not cause complete destruction. Now, the claim is, why do you deserve 60 lashes of fire? Because one of two things. If you're good, be good all the way. If you want to disobey a command of heaven because you want to defend the Jews, what you should have done was refuse. Don't take the coals at all. If you did take the coals, you should have done as you were told. Take them yourself not to have them handed to you. Secondly, how do you come and report, I have done just as you have told me? You're not supposed to give a report like that. One should never report about harm or destruction. There's no such thing as reporting harm or destruction. This is a general rule we find throughout the Torah. We find, for example, that in the Megillat Esther, it says that there was a messenger sent by Mordechai to Esther, telling her about the danger that the Jews were in, and that she should go before Achashverosh the king to plead for the Jews. Then she said, how can I go if I wasn't summoned by the king? If I go, I might be put to death. I can walk inside without permission. Megillah says that her reply was brought back to Mordechai. It doesn't say this messenger Hatach brought it back. Why? Because you do not bring a reply of something that is bad. You cannot be a messenger of something that is bad. So here too, how did you come to report, I did something that is so harmful to the Jews? In other words, your actions were all wrong, and therefore he was given 60 fiery, heavenly lashes. Now, in addition, it was decided you lose your position in high rank, and in your place, we're going to take the Malach, the angel Dubi. At the end of every name, of course, you have the word Kale, that represents a Malach. And this Dubi, with that name Kale, is the Malach of Persia. He was brought and placed in this high rank, and he was given this position for a period of 21 days. 21 days is a rough number. It's the number of days between Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, 17 days in Tammuz, and the 9th day of Av, those 3 weeks of mourning before the destruction of the Holy Temple. 21 days is the period of time that it takes for an egg to be hatched, to be laid, because an egg is a sign of Abelut, of mourning too. For 21 days, this Malach of Persia took over the leadership and the ruling power, and he said, I demand that I be given the right to have my people, the Persians, to declare a tax, a head tax for every Jew. This, of course, makes life difficult for the Jews. This request was granted. Then he said, I demand the right to have this head tax placed on the rabbis too. They should pay a head tax. According to Hebrew law, rabbis are exempt from tax. When he said this Malach Gavil rose up and said, I object to this. Because these Talmidei Chachamim, look, even their wives stay up late at night. They don't sleep, waiting for their husbands to come home from the yeshiva, from learning Torah, that they can feed them. They lose sleep at night, every single night, and they consider this worthy enough because they will get it back all in Gan Eden. If the wives are so loyal to Torah, and imagine what the husbands are like, the Talmidei Chachamim. On these, a tax should be placed. The heavenly judge refused to listen to this claim, which meant that the Persian angel, the angel of Persia, was about to win out. So Gabriel, the Malach, rose up again and said, Hashem, I plead with you on another account. You would take all the wise men of the Goyim, wise leaders of Goyim, put them on a scale, and take just one tzadik of the Jews, Daniel. Put him on a scale, he would surely outweigh all of them. One tzadik of your people is worth more than all their wise men of the Goyim. On ones like these, a tax should be placed. Hashem said, who is this Malach? I mean, how remarkable this Malach, Gabriel, who was punished before, strives so hard to speak good about my children. In that case, I command that he return. He come back in my good grace, And he will now be the leader again, the higher rank, and the Malach of Persia is expelled. At that moment, Gabriel came forward, and he found this angel of Persia holding a note received in heaven, a heavenly note, which said that the taxes should be placed upon the Jews and upon the Talmidei Chachamim. He reached out, grabbed for this note, pulled it away from this Malach. The Malach took it and swallowed it to avoid it being taken away. But as he swallowed it, the letters, the seal, was erased from it. In the act of swallowing. And that's why the Gemara says we find today, at that time, when the Persians took over, that they did place the head tax upon the Jews, but not on the Talmidei Chachamim. Still, in this vision, the Malach Yecheskel, the Navi, Prophet Yecheskel said, and then this Malach Gabriel turned to me and said, I am the leader now. Yes, I will battle against the Persians. They should not do harm to the Jews. But I tell you in the future, there's going to come a time that I will be out of power. I will be powerless to battle when the Greek Empire takes over. Woe is to us, the Jews, Chas v'Shalom, the Greek Empire takes over, and they will do so much harm to Antiochus, the time of the miracle of Hanukkah. The harm that they will do in harming the Jews, the evil decrees, and destroying partially the Holy Temple. And there's nothing that I cry, oi, oi, but I'm not being listened to. This I state for the future. This was the vision of Yecheskel the prophet, and the explanation. And naturally, we must understand that the terms, when we use terms here that resemble physical, to place malachim in physical terms, the Zohar Kadosh says that one who considers this literally in physical terms is the same as one who considers heavenly powers in physical terms, like building an idol, making an idol or a physical being out of heavenly powers, Chas v'Shalom. So that all these statements have very hidden meanings to them, and they are purely spiritual. But the main part of the lesson is showing us the importance of speaking well about Jews, no matter what condition, what status they're in. Because even so great an angel as Gabriel, who had been expelled from the heavenly court because he spoke well of the Jews, his expulsion was removed, and he was again brought close to his high rank, which means Ochet, to always speak Lashon Tov, good about Jews. The Gemara says that on Yom Kippur there is a law, of course, that there are 5 inuyim, 5 types of suffering that a Jew is obligated to undertake. Eating, drinking are forbidden. The use of oil, pouring oil on the body, and washing, using water to wash with. Certainly, bathing is forbidden. Now, the 5th, of course, relates to husband and wife. Now, bathing being forbidden completely, this is one of the 5 inuyim. It's a question whether this is midoraita or midrabanan. That's a machloket. But it is definitely a serious, a strict law forbidden on Yom Kippur. The Gemara says, what if a person wants the mitzvah of visiting his father, or visiting his rabbi, or visiting a great person, great tzadik, and he cannot get to that person, father or rabbi, except by crossing a body of water. There's no boat. He's got to walk through the water, wade through it, swim through it. This is bathing. Is he allowed to go through this body of water on Yom Kippur for this purpose? The Gemara says definitely he is permitted. The mitzvah is so great, Kibud Rabo is so great, that even on Yom Kippur, when this law is so strict, he's allowed to go through this body of water. Yoma asks, what about the case of a rabbi who wants to visit a student? Is he allowed to go through a body of water? A rabbi going to a student is the same. There's a question of Torah being studied. The Yoma says, one rabbi states that I saw a rabbi, Zaidi, going to visit Rav Chia Barashi, his student. Doesn't that prove that the rabbi is allowed to go? The Yoma answers, Rashi says that you did not see correctly. You saw one going to the other, but what you saw was the student going to the rabbi through a body of water, not the other way around. This is how the Yoma ends this topic, which means that we are left with this question hanging. Is it permissible or not? In the Shulchan, the Bet Yosef says that since this question is left in doubt, we must take the chavruta, difficult side, and therefore the law remains that a rabbi cannot visit a student. Later, posek in the Shulchan say that we accept that. It's understood. You must always, in case of doubt, take the more difficult part, the chavruta. But no doubt that if the rabbi is going to visit the student, because in this case the rabbi needs the help of the student, he is in doubt about a certain law, and this student might have heard this law mentioned by a different rabbi. There is something the student knows the rabbi doesn't. And though he is a rabbi, the other is a student. At this moment, he needs him as a form of a rabbi. So here, even the rabbi too can go to visit a student through a body of water on Yom Kippur. That's the law stated in the Shulchan Aruch. The major law on Kippur, of course, is that food is forbidden. The Torah tells us that one of the most difficult laws to abide by is the mitzvah of fasting. That's physical suffering. And we have a law which says that Erev Kippur, you have to eat a lot. But keep in mind that the food you eat is for the sake of the mitzvah. The Torah tells us, the words of the Torah, you should fast on the 9th day of Tishrei. Now, Kippur is the 10th day. How could you fast on the 9th day? The Yoma answers, this means you should eat on the 9th day of Tishrei, and you get as much of a mitzvah eating Erev Kippur as the mitzvah of fasting on Kippur. Now, if the Torah would have said you should eat on the 9th day of Tishrei, what reward do you get? Rewards for eating, which is not much of a mitzvah. It's not difficult. When the Torah says fast, that means that your eating will be as great a mitzvah as though you fasted. And certainly the reward for fasting is much bigger than the reward for eating. Now, why do we have to eat on the 9th day of Tishrei? Why is it so important? Because it's much more difficult to fast after eating a lot than when you haven't. The body is used to eating a lot, and then suddenly you break that chain, you go into a full fast. It makes the fasting much more difficult. Also, there's a hidden sign. This is in the Chumash, the pasuk, but it says you should fast on the 9th day of the month. That's the sentence. This is a warning of the Torah. You're going to have to fast. In addition to this, the 9th day of which Av, Tisha B'Av. So though the destruction of the Bet Midrash came much later, both of them, but hidden in this sentence is a hint of what's going to come. Now, fasting on the 9th of Av is not mid-oraita, it's mid-rabanan. But we have that hidden secret message in the Torah itself, the oraita telling us of a fast that's forthcoming. As we said, fasting on Kippur is compulsory. However, if it's a matter of serious illness, chas v'shalom, and the person is excused, only where it's serious, a matter of life and death. In the case of a woman who is pregnant, there is a problem where it may cause serious illness. We cannot take chances. So the din says, if a woman is pregnant, she complains that she cannot bear, she cannot suffer through this Kippur, then we have to feed her. How do we go about it? We feed her a tiny drop where it's not considered actually eating. Breaking the law of the Torah, Doraita, is only if a person eats the size of a little larger than an olive. That's breaking the official law of the Torah. Less than that is not officially breaking the law of Torah. In other words, it is assumed in the Torah, but you haven't got the penalty of death, of karet, as a person who eats the little larger than the size of an olive. So we say to the pregnant woman, at least, we're going to feed you, at least eat that which is less than the actual forbidden size. Now what if she says, after eating this drop, she says, it's not enough. It's not sufficient to help me out of my dilemma. I must have more food. What do we do then? The Yoma tells us two stories of what happened. Because we're speaking now about a pregnant woman. What causes a pregnant woman to suffer and to crave food? It's not just the woman. It's the child within the woman that craves this food. And this child within the woman has a lot of intelligence. Certainly is intelligent enough because during the 9 months of pregnancy, this child is studying the entire Torah, being taught it by an angel. The child has powers of seeing far more than an ordinary human being. It's still connected to its life as a neshama in heaven. So the Yoma says there was once a case where they came before Rabbi Nachman, came before him a case of a pregnant woman, and they asked, what should we do? She claimed she must have food. Rabbi Nachman said, whisper into her ear, today is Yom Kippur. That message will go through her down to the child and see what happens. They whispered into her ear, and she said, I'm not hungry anymore. Later she gave birth. Who did she give birth to? Rabbi Yochanan. This child to Rabbi Yochanan, the chief rabbi of Eretz Yisrael. The Yoma says a second case came about, also this time before Rabbi Hanina, a pregnant woman, and again she too claimed that she must have food. Rabbi Hanina said, we learned a lesson from Rabbi Nachman. Whisper into her ear that today is Yom Kippur. They whispered into her ear, and she felt no improvement. She must have food. She said, in that case, she must feed her as much as she needs. They fed her. Sometime later, she gave birth. This child turned out to be Shabtai, a man who gathered food, who hoarded food, and thereby caused the price of food to rise in the market, causing a lot of damage to the Jews in Eretz Yisrael. The Yoma says, we see from here that you can detect the goodness, the purity of a child even before it's born. There's a way of detecting it. Naturally, you cannot use this as a test. It wouldn't necessarily always work. But in many cases, we see that it is factual that a child continues along a certain pattern. A person is born along a certain pattern. Some people control, break, overcome their evil nature. They turn out to be tzadikim. Others, chas v'shalom, go the wrong way. In either case, though, we find that this method is one that was employed then, and has been used afterwards too, and it is a sign that a person should pray, as the din says, pray to be zocheh, to have good children. Though it says that tefillah doesn't necessarily help, because after all, the child born has his own free choice. You cannot dictate to a person what he should be. So you cannot pray to heaven and have heaven change this child to a tzadik, because that means taking away the free choice from this Jew as being born. But still, it will help to a certain degree. Some help must come of it. A person should do his best to bring up this child properly, and pray, and hope that with all this, he will have the mazal, with all his efforts, and his tefillah to have the mazal, that he'll be zocheh to have true Jewish, religious nachat from his children. So he'll be zocheh to see good children, children's children, and to see the complete redemption, the Geulah Shlema, and the Mashiach Kenu, בבניין בית המקדש במהרה בימינו, אמן ויאמן.